Quick mortgage update. Actually have my brand new Movement Mortgage camo hat on. Not because I'm going hunting or that Movement Mortgage encourages hunting, but we do have a new veterans initiative that's coming out that I'm pretty excited about, and they're leading with some swag. And frankly, because I didn't serve during a time of war, sometimes I forget that I'm a veteran because I was just in Fort Riley, Kansas, training and drinking and partying and having a good time, and I never got shot at, nor did I ever have to shoot at anybody, thankfully. So sometimes I forget I'm a veteran, and I forget to go out there and tell the audience and my realtor partners and my friends and the veteran community that I can help with their VA loan. I love doing VA loans. I have a VA loan on my own house. So totally separate side note than what I wanted to talk about today. But yeah, Movement Mortgage. We do a lot of good things for veterans. Pretty cool. What I wanted to talk about today, and this is specifically talking to my realtor friends, my realtor partners, any realtors who I work with or don't work with, maybe if we're just friends on Facebook, hopefully there's some good information here. It is a really tough, kind of shitty time to be an appraiser. It's a really tough time to be an appraiser. And let's just start from the premise that lenders aren't shitty and appraisers aren't trying to kill your deal, right? There's very few bad mortgage companies out there, and there's very few, if maybe none, of the appraisers in the market that are trying to kill your deal. You know, on the 95% of appraisals that we have come back at the contract price, I never seem to get a thank you from people that are involved in the transaction saying, hey, thanks, your appraiser really went to bat here. You know, that was really a unique way to evaluate the value and appreciate that. But you know, the 5% of appraisals that we are seeing come in below the purchase contract right now, or below the purchase price, you know, all of a sudden the appraiser is horrible. He's trying to kill the deal. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Never in my life haven't I seen an appraisal come in low, da 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 da. Well, let's just work from this premise, right? Appraisers aren't trying to kill your deal. They're not bad guys. And what they're dealing with right now is just simple economics versus regulation, right? Economics versus regulation. So let's talk about the economics piece first. In Southern California, where I'm at, specifically LA County, there are fewer houses on the market. There are fewer houses selling right now, right? That kind of makes sense. A lot of people are unsure of exactly what's going on with their job or their finances due to COVID-19. Maybe less sellers are willing to go on the market and have people come through their house. Maybe fewer people are downsizing or upsizing because they just want some clarity on the election, on the economy, on COVID-19, on the vaccine, yada, yada, yada. Doesn't really matter what the reason, but there's just less velocity in the real estate market right now in Southern California, meaning there's less things going on the market, there's fewer homes closing. That is what it is, right? So what happens in Economics 101 when there's less supply than there is demand, right? Because there's still a lot of household formation. There's still a lot of people out shopping. I'm still pre-approving a dozen people a week that want to buy houses. So we have less supply. But we have the same or maybe even more demand, right? Some people think they can get a deal on a house right now. A lot of people in Southern California are still comfortable with their financial picture and their job. So there's way more buyers than there is sellers, right? So very simple economics, less supply, more demand, prices go up, right? You get 2, 3, 5, 10, 30 people bidding for the same house. That's going to drive up prices. And eventually somebody with more cash down, gift funds from family, trust fund, windfall money from their company recently going public, somebody's going to drive up that price and not care whether they pay an extra 5, 10, 50, or 100 grand over the asking price in order to get into that home, because for them it's money that they're willing to spend and they need a home, right? So basic economics, low supply, high demand, it's going to drive up prices, right? Now let's go to the regulatory side of it on what appraisers have to deal with, right? Appraisers are looking and they're saying like, I get it. You know, I'm talking to appraiser friends of mine that own companies up in the Bay Area and out of state, not appraisers that work on our particular deals, but appraisers who are just friends of mine, or they run companies, and they're like, hey, Scott, I get it. I understand the economic reality, and I understand that the market is speaking to a price of, let's say, $800,000, right? There's 10 offers, and they got several of them at or around $800,000, and so the house is worth $800,000 because that's what the market is speaking to, right? However, on the regulatory side of it, of what appraisers are required to put in their appraisal report, there is no place where it says how many offers did the property receive, or how many people are willing to pay $800,000 for the house. That's not part of the appraisal mathematics, right? What the appraiser has to do is they have to drive the neighborhood, and they have to find somewhere between 3 and several properties that are similar, that sold for a similar price, within a mile of the subject property, sold within 90 days of this property going under contract. And granted, under certain circumstances with good appraisers, they can expand their search area a little bit. They can go back in time a little bit. But remember, back to the econ part of the equation, there's fewer houses selling, right? So that means when the appraiser goes out, he's trying to bring in a property at the contract price of $800,000. There's a smaller and smaller pool of appraisal, a smaller and smaller pool of houses that have turned over for them to pull from. And there goes my ring alarm. I've got to find a way to turn that off in the day. If anybody knows how to snooze your ring alarm from like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., please leave it in the comments here. And by the way, if you're watching this, see, now my dog's going crazy. If you're watching this, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a comment, so that way other people, the Facebook algorithm tells them what to do. So going back to our example, the appraiser's like, yeah, I get it. Here's what the economy is demanding. Here's what the market is speaking to. It's speaking to a value of $800,000. But when I drive the neighborhood and I look at other properties in the area within a mile sold within the last 90 days, there's just not a lot of similar comps, right? And so if you as a realtor or a lender are seeing appraisals come in below the contract price, it doesn't mean that anybody's trying to kill your deal. It doesn't mean that the appraiser's bad at his job. It doesn't mean that they don't understand the market or the comps, or they drove from a town away so they don't get how to do appraisal. What it means is that the market is just outpacing the available comparable properties. And we've seen this happen a few times in 3 to 6 month spurts over the last 20 years, probably since the history of the housing market. But in my time in the business, the last 21 years, we've seen this sometimes where just the market starts to get ahead of the available comps, right? And one comp an appraisal does not make, right? So one comp cannot make an appraisal, meaning if you're a realtor and you're trying to evaluate what offer to accept, and you're like, hey, we've got a lot of offers at $800,000, and there's that one house right down the street that sold for $800,000. That's great. That can be the number one comp. That can be the number one thing that speaks to what the value of the subject property is. However, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, going back to all the regulation that came out of 2009, instead of appraisers back in the day, pre-2009, having to have 1 or 2 or 3 great comps, now they have to have 3 perfect comps with 3 to 6 supporting comps, and the appraisal process is just much harder than it used to be. So what do you do if you're a realtor? Well, first of all, I personally, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm not a realtor, but I work with a lot of them, and I play one on TV sometimes. Now that's just a joke. If I was an appraiser and I'm accepting an offer at the absolute top of the market, so let's go back to this $800,000 example. Other comps in the area have sold in the last 90 days for $750 to $775. I know your house is super special. It's on an amazing cul-de-sac, or it has great fit and finish, or it's got a view or a jacuzzi or a widget that makes it worth a lot more. But you know that you're accepting an offer towards the top of the market at $800,000. I wouldn't accept an offer with super low money down or reserves where that client can't make up a small shortage, right? You don't want to have a deal fall apart because the appraiser did everything he could and he could only bring it in this example, at $780 or $790 or $795. And I know that it seems silly when an appraisal comes in $5 or $10 or $20,000 low, but it's like a lot of times that's the appraiser just fighting to get it as high as it can, but they just can't justify, in this example, the $800,000 purchase price because they know the appraisal is going to get reviewed by an underwriter, a human. They know the appraiser is going to get reviewed by the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac software that says, was this a good appraisal or not? Were the comps correctly selected? Was the geographical footprint where they pulled the comps from? Like, it's just a tough time to be an appraiser. So realtors, you can be maybe a little bit more diligent in the offers you're accepted. Ask about, hey, are we waiving the appraisal contingency? Do they have cash to bring in if there's a shortage on the appraisal? Are they putting 20% down and could pivot to a 15% down loan and use some of that extra down payment towards an appraisal shortage, right? Talk to the loan officer. Talk through what the finances are. I have these conversations all the time proactively if I have a client who's putting down low money, right? If the appraisal comes in low, be ready with some comps that might be more appropriate to send in a rebuttal, right? And just looking through our stats here, our team's closed about 200 loans this year. We've had 16 or 17 where the appraisal came in low, so running at about 8 or 9%. Of that 8 or 9% where the appraisals came in low, we were able to dispute them with the help of some real quality realtors and have about half of those appraisals overturned, which is a minor miracle, by the way, because that means the appraiser is basically admitting that he made a mistake. He's taking the new data points from the listing agent, the buyer's agent, saying, yeah, that's fair. We'll reevaluate this appraisal up to XYZ or whatnot. So I feel very good at the track record we have, especially here at Movement Mortgage, on one, bringing 90+% of appraisals in at the contract price. And then even when it's coming in low, having a pool of realtors that look objectively at the data we're providing and saying, yeah, you know what, I did miss that comp. Or maybe this house isn't the best comp and we should go ahead and raise the value of the appraisal. It's happened, thank God, and it saved a couple deals. But look, I just want all my realtor friends and lender friends, if you're watching this, to know like, hey, I get it. It's frustrating, right? We don't want a third-party vendor like an insurance agent or an appraiser or a title company or escrow company to kill a deal. But nobody's trying to kill the deal, right? Everybody wants the deal to happen, but appraisers are just in a tough situation right now where the economic situation and the reality of supply and demand and the economy is outpacing the available comparable properties that can be used on an appraisal. And I hope this clears things up. If you have any specific appraisal questions, I will try to answer them as best I can. Leave them here in the comments. If this was a good conversation or if this was some good information for you, do me a favor, leave a comment, hit the like button like a bunch of times so that more people see this. And then last but not least, if you're a realtor, please do not fall for the unethical loan officer who says, oh, don't worry, I called my guy and he said he can bring it at value. Look, there is no situation where a loan officer can pre-flight an appraisal by an appraiser, right? They're either one, absolutely lying to you to try to get the deal and then just keep their fingers crossed and praying to the appraisal gods that it comes in at the contract price. That's usually what's happening. They're just lying to you. Oh, yeah. They'll look up some comps on Redfin and Title just like I can. And they'll say, oh, I pre-flighted by the appraiser. No problem. Just come on. You know, we'll get it done. That's either happening or they're just simply breaking the law, right? So if you're working with a loan officer who you know is knowingly reaching out to appraisers and talking to them directly about the value of a property, they're breaking the law. Plain and simple. This is not some gray area. There's not some workaround. If a loan officer is talking directly to an appraiser about the value of a property, they are breaking the law. Actually, they are breaking several laws, and I would recommend just not working with a loan officer like that, right? So we've got some tricks. We've got some things that we can do on the rebuttal. We've got some things where we can pre-flight values through an automated system to get it to see if we get an appraisal waiver, meaning we don't even have to have a physical appraiser go out there. But just, pick your battles, right? Know what you're getting into with each individual borrower, what their cash reserves are. Are they waiving the appraisal contingency? Can they come up with the cash to cover a shortage? Can they restructure their loan to cover a shortage? Give appraisers some grace. It's a tough market to be an appraiser in right now. Like, I really feel for these guys. Give your loan officer some grace. They're a little overwhelmed right now with everybody and their brother refinancing. And then just have your ducks in a row to dispute the appraisal if it comes in low. And then last but not least, be ready to accept a slightly lower net sales price because, look, we're at the top of about an 11-year bull market in real estate. So at the end of the day, if your client bought, like many people in the east side of LA did, for $550 and they're selling for $800 versus $790, at the end of the day, look, would I rather all of our clients have the extra $10,000 if they're a seller? Of course. In the long scheme of things, if they bought for $550 and they net out $790 versus $800, is it still a huge windfall just because of market sources and market forces? Absolutely. Just be happy with it. So love you guys lots. I hope this clarified some things for some of you. If you want to see any other conversations about appraisers, if you want to see me interview an appraiser, just leave a comment here. And if you've watched this all the way to the end, I see there's like 15 of you that watched this all the way in. Thank you. Just hit the little likey love button and leave a comment so that other people see it, thanks to the Facebook algorithm. All right. Talk soon. Love you all.